Hey everyone, it's Viv, and this is a new series I'm kind of trying my hand at of taking old characters that I made as a beginner artist and making redesigns of them and turning them into something new and fun. I'm kind of not just redesigning, but kind of reimagining and seeing what they would be like if I were to design them today. Today I'm working with Candy, who is a character I drew when I was around 11 or 12. Candy is a part of a story I wrote about a group of friends from 30 years in the future who traveled back in time to the present day. This was when I had first discovered gay people existed, and a few friends of mine were coming out at the time, and my perception of the world was that the current time was full of nothing but homophobia and hate, and the future these guys were from would be a time that didn't have any of that. The story involved them helping out a young trans girl who was being bullied, and then the girl decided she wanted to return to the future with them to be in this queer-friendly utopia of sorts. It was a very kind of escapist fantasy of a young kid. I think this was one of my first times deliberately making my characters queer instead of just making characters that I didn't think about that for. So these ones were definitely my gay characters, this one's non-binary, and that's interesting. I've never had a non-binary character before, but nowadays of course I do that all the time, but I think Candy might have been my first character that I made that used they them pronouns. I'm not sure about that, but that might be the case. I think I'll definitely do videos in this series at some point redesigning the rest of the characters from that comic story thing I made, because they were awesome and also deserve a cool redesign like Candy does. This was back in my big head phase with my art. There was a random period of a couple months where I decided I wanted all my drawings to have massive heads for no reason and noodle arms with no digits. I think I was just tired of drawing hands. I think it ended up looking weirder than I wanted it to. My goal for it was kind of a cute chibi art style, but I didn't really know how to do that, so it's kind of a weird mix, but that's what 12-year-old art is. I picked this character to work with first because I actually still like a lot of elements of the design. I think the colors are nice, and I saw a lot that I could work with, so I did some prep sketches, and you might see me flipping back to those at some points in this video. Another thing I would do back then is I would theme characters around one concept as their entire look and personality. So this one was Candy, of course, and their name was Candy, and they have the candy shirt and the candy earring and the candy stripes, and it's a good design, but also is there anything in this but candy? Also, just a gut design decision that I made was that they need to have roller skates. They just look like someone who roller skates, and the original outfit just looks like something you would wear to roller skate, so I needed to add roller skates. That was just a thing that had to happen. My character designs lately are a lot more detailed, so I have added in a lot of elements that wouldn't show up in the original, little bracelets and bandages, and later I add a keychain from their backpack, which is cool. I spent a long time trying to get their face right. I wanted one that looked pretty androgynous, and it was mostly hard to get the expression. I couldn't tell if I wanted them to be looking snarky, confident, but definitely some sort of happy, proud of themselves, that sort of thing. So I added a lot of elements to this design, but I also kept the essential bits, so it's still clearly the same character. The arm and leg warmers and stuff, those will all be the same, and the tank top, although I've given it a hoodie and a shirt under it, is still has that same Candy design. This is my first time doing YouTube in a while. I kind of hit a block with it for a while, but I'm starting a new thing. I'm trying to see if this redraw series will kind of pick up and be a little more of something I can stay motivated on, because I have an issue with losing motivation for projects really easily and not pushing through and doing them. So this is going to be the thing to sort of like challenge myself and see if I can stick with something for this long. I plan to eventually get myself some like better equipment for recording audio and stuff. Right now I'm just using like my editing system and I have no microphone other than my computer one, so if this audio is bad, that's why. But if I decide to make this more of a long-running thing, which I'm hoping I can, I'll probably get myself some better equipment for recording stuff and probably teach myself how not to stutter so much during these because anxieties. I'm also glad to have finally gotten a quiet moment to work on this because I have a new kitten and he is usually very jump up on tables, walk on your computer, that sort of thing. So it's been hard to get quiet time to work on things. But right now he's just chilling on my bed, sitting like a cute little guy. I love him. I've been reworking my style a lot over the years. You'll see later that I've adopted kind of a new shading style and coloring is different than it used to be for me. I used to be very like precise about everything and I'm like, I need every line to look clean and smooth and perfect. But lately I've been really digging this rough style where things are a little more scratchy and less perfect, and so this new inking pen I'm using is a little more rough around the edges, and the shading I'm using the kind of default Photoshop blend tool, which is like, honestly, I don't even like it that much, but I can't find better blending brushes, or at least I haven't looked for them, so that's what I'm using for now. But I think if I use a more rough style, it actually works better than before when I was trying to go for smooth blending, but I didn't know how, so I just used the rough brush and it ended up looking kind of weird, not the way I wanted it to. Another thing I've gotten way better at over the years is drawing shoes, and it's one of the things that surprisingly like I got better at just through sheer force of doing it a million times because I loved drawing full body character designs, and so I just had to be drawing a lot of shoes, and even though I hated drawing shoes, I just kind of ended up getting better at it because I had to in order for those drawings to work. So it's one of those weird things that like I felt like was impossible at the beginning, and now I can do it well, but it's not because I like specifically put effort into it. It was just something that happened. And that's kind of how it is with art, you know, a lot of the time you don't get better if you're forcing yourself to do things that are out of your comfort zone. One thing my therapist says is that between your comfort zone and your discomfort zone, there's a growth zone, and that's where you want to be most of the time, at least. Of course, there's plenty of reasons to stay in the comfort zone, but having that growth zone, which isn't out of your comfort but isn't totally in your comfort, can really help. And that is what I end up doing because there's certain things you need to do even if you're not totally the best at them. Don't know what that ramble was about. But getting the design on those shoes is still like, drawing shoes is one thing, but designing shoes is something I still struggle with, like getting lines to look right. Because if you ever actually look at a shoe, they look really weird. Like the designs that shoe making companies put on them is like really strange and it's not intuitive at all. Shoes are just such a weird shape, man. Also, another cute fun thing I thought I would do is give them candy like bracelets and necklaces, you know, KANDI, to kind of fit with the theme. You know, I'm totally going with what my original 12-year-old self would have wanted with this. I'm leaning into the candy name really hard and giving it all that sorts of cheesiness, but still looking cool, you know? I say, you know, as if people can hear me. So yeah, recently I've taken to doing multiply shading instead of what I had been doing before, which was like individually picking every shading color and putting that in, and it was exhausting, but it looked really nice. But eventually I realized that the drawings I was making with that, while they looked really cool, didn't have much like cohesion because I was picking every shading color individually. I wasn't thinking about how the whole piece overall would look. Oh, here's me giving them eye bags, of course. Anyway, so using multiply shading, which is like using one dark color to shade the whole thing using Photoshop funness, that kind of gives the whole thing a more unified look, even if it does end up dulling out some of the colors. Like, you kind of have to do that if you want your whole design to look like it fits in the same universe, because, you know, having like a blue thing that's shaded with cool tones next to a yellow thing that's shaded with warm tones, like that just doesn't exist in the real world. And so even though it might look prettier that way, it makes the whole thing look a little bit less real, which is fine if that's what you're going for, of course. But for me, I always wanted kind of a realistic-ish look to at least the forms of my characters, not necessarily the style, but I wanted them to look like they exist in a real plane, even if it's not the same as ours. So I think switching to this multiply shading was a really good idea. And it's not perfect, you know, there's bits where I edit here and there, but one thing I'm really glad that I am able to do with it is shade like curvature, because I used to not be able to do that in my other style because I had flat shading, like I didn't blend anything. And I'm really getting more comfortable with blending lately, and it's super smooth, and you can really show off forms and shapes much easier than if you do flat shading with just a single line, because it looks good on some things, but then when you're shading certain things that are supposed to be like round shapes, like it looks really off if you don't know what you're doing, you know? And I love the way I'm doing hair now. Like, I'm really proud of what I'm doing, which is like making it more streaky and looking like it's actual hair instead of plastic, which is kind of what my character's hair used to look like, which is fine, you know. I still like a lot of my old art. And when I say old in this context, I'm talking about like a year ago, not stuff as old as this original drawing. Oh, and here's the boy walking on my computer. That's right. Stop it. I need to work. Okay. GG. Color scheme. I added a lot more dark areas to this than there were in the original, just to kind of balance things out and give them a little bit more of a, like, I don't know. Teenagers wear a lot of black, and this character is a teenager in my head, and so I thought the original design having only like white and pastel colors, while cute, is a little bit not the vibe I was going for in the original. And so I changed up the legwear and added this dark purple shirt and black fingerless gloves, and, you know, all of that, so there's a little more realism in there, but still cute. And then my finishing touches include changing the line art color and making it darker in the areas that need darker lines to not be funky. And I have really been loving doing this lately, is making all my line art colored. Like, I've been doing that for a while, but it's been different. I would do like every individual color has its own different color of line art, but now I'm just doing like one color for the warm tones, one color for the cool tones, and then if anything's like too dark and the lines look brighter than the color it is, then I go in and change those. But other than that, yeah, this is basically it, and this is me messing around with what I want the background to be. I eventually settle on this candy pattern that looks like the pattern on their shirt and everything. Took me a few tries to get it right, but there it is. Thanks so much for watching. I had a ton of fun making this video and looking through all my stashes of old art for characters to redesign. I took like 80 pictures, so there will definitely be more of these if I get the motivation. So I'll see you next time. Bye.